Well, it's now 1 minute to Zoe Rose. And let me just say, if there isn't a person that's like a spiritual beer farmer, Zoe Rose would be one of them. Huge supporter of the community, good friend of mine, good friend to the beer farmers, and friends to ferrets and hackers everywhere. Zoe, do you want to say hello? Tell us a little bit more about you, and we'll kick it off.
Yes, okay. What do I would say? Hi, I'm Zoe. My handle is RoseSecOps. A bit about me. I've just closed out, like, I think I'm late in celebrating, but a decade of technology career. I think this is technically my 11th year now, but we'll say it's a decade. And so it's actually kind of a big change for me, because it's like I've done 10 years and now I'm starting 2020 in like a really big, fresh, and hopefully more exciting, I don't know, outlook, if that's the right word. What else do I want to say? What else about me? Oh, and obviously Ferret SecOps, also a massive part of my daily life. So definitely going to chat about them in this conference.
So 2019 though saw you on some huge stages. You're a regular
did.
on the speaking circuit. What advice would you have for folks that are wanting to start out? I mean, you how did you end up starting out as a speaker?
Well, my very first talk was in 2015. It was back then called B-Sides Winnipeg. And if you remember, Ian, and I talked about network configuration management, very sexy, I know, but it was in a pub, and I got 150 people, I think was the numbers at the time, excited, and they were like hacker type people, you know, they were nerdy, but they were also like, you know, talking about the cool sides of security. And I got them excited about network configuration management. And I thought that was, mind you, I also created a tool that I was demoing that was super insecure, because I didn't really, like, I built it knowing it wasn't quality, but just as a concept, not as a, don't ever deploy this on your network, it would be a horrible idea.
Which everybody then does in
yeah.
industry, right? Yeah.
I mean, literally, I needed to learn Python. So I built it using Python, PHP, which I still don't know. You know, I had SQL. It was vulnerable to SQL injection, and I used a bit of HTML, obviously, for the website, and then CSS to make it look really sexy. So it was a black website with green text, obviously hackerish and very elite.
Super.
But the whole point of it was such a boring topic, but something that I absolutely loved. And then people in the audience at a pub, maybe alcohol helped, but they were excited about it too. And so I think that still to this day is one of my favorite talks. It wasn't great. The quality of the talk probably wasn't there, but it was something that I was really passionate about. And I carry that through in every talk that I ever do. It's always something that I'm really excited about and I want to share. And when I get feedback, besides the feedback of spiteful people, because you do always get some not so happy responses.
No.
But
on Twitter, never.
I had one person tell me, I learned absolutely nothing from this talk. And I was like, well, you weren't listening then, because I talked about not being a jerk. But okay. But anyways, but really, when you do a talk, do something you're passionate about, because it's not easy. You're not going to know everything, and you're not going to necessarily be able to answer all the questions. But the fact that you go up there and you express something that you really want to make a difference and to share, and then, you know, get other people in the audience excited with you, that is the best feeling ever. And then my recent talk, I spoke at Go to Copenhagen. I think that was my last one. No, B-Sides Copenhagen. So those two in the same week. And afterwards, I spoke about two different topics, but I had people coming up to me after, and besides Copenhagen, one was like, you know, I really liked your definition of diversity, because he'd said that, you know, everybody always talks about gender diversity, but what about the different things like tech and experiences and so on and so forth? And for him, that was really impactful, and that made me really happy. And then besides Copenhagen, it was their first one, and one, it was brilliant. I was the only female speaker, but unfortunately, somebody made a very rude comment. Well, it wasn't rude. They asked me if I was single in my questions time, but the organisers right away stepped in, were like, that's not appropriate. Don't do that, you know, and reminded everybody about the code of conduct and everything. And I thought that was really brilliant, because I laughed it off, because, you know, I get that sometimes, and it's, you know, whether or not they think I'm attractive, I don't really care, but it's really awkward. I did remind them that my very large Polish partner was there, but the fact that the organisers stepped up and were like, "That's not okay," right away was brilliant, and it was really supportive, you know. And so I think there's, you know, not only did I get to share my passion, but the minute somebody was like, I'm going to ruin this exciting moment for you, the organisers stepped up and, you know, made the difference. And honestly, it's one of my favourite conferences, the fact that they did that. Not that it wasn't a brilliant conference anyway, it was actually quite brilliant. And then also afterwards, so I volunteer with Operation Safe Escape. It's an American-based not-for-profit for victims of abuse, and then helps them get out of it, so they can, you know, be survivors of abuse, you know, get out of that dangerous environment and start their new life safely. And when I mentioned that, just briefly, not in depth, somebody came up to me afterwards and said, you know, I really like that you mentioned this. I have a friend that's going through something that I would like to provide them with advice. And so I was able to direct them to Go Ask Rose, the public website for Operation Safe Escape. And to me, that even if the audience didn't actually learn anything from me, I hope they did, but even if they didn't, just having that one person be able to find support through me was probably the most, I don't know, probably the most rewarding thing. So I guess my very rambly way of saying, you know, if you're going to speak about your passion and celebrate the small wins, because it's really easy. And I do this to this day, is get feedback, and then I see all the good stuff, and then I see that one jerk response, and I just feel so demotivated. And I'm like, oh, I didn't do anything, it wasn't good enough. This one person says I'm horrible, and I'm listening to them, and that's absolutely silly. So I guess, yeah, just celebrate your wins and talk about your passion. Do you have another question?
Yeah, I was going to get Sean to jump in with a question, but I guess he's away from the. Oh, there he is.
No, I'm sorry.
I might have put him to sleep.
No, I was just trying to get. So one of the things I've seen a lot happening, especially recently, is a lot of negativity, especially like trolling and that kind of thing. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, how do you recommend people should kind of avoid that or switch it off? Do you have any sort of things that you use to help?
It's really easy to get caught up in the drama. I like to call it drama llamas, because llamas make me laugh, and it's kind of a great way to like instantly make myself smile, and so I kind of remove myself from that. But I think the biggest challenge is this industry is so, I'm right and you're wrong. You know, it's so negative. It's so not
toxic.
It can be very toxic, and it's really easy to just go down that rabbit hole and just keep getting toxic and keep getting worse and keep getting more angry. But actually, and what's I think this year has been a big reminder for me is, if you don't know, last year I was diagnosed with depression, and it was really like horrible. I've never had to deal with depression before in my entire life. I had no idea what it was. and honestly, it got to the point where I couldn't work, I couldn't eat, I couldn't get out of bed. It was so bad. And over the last year, it was just me kind of relearning how to do things and relearning how to, I know on the outside, I, kept doing conferences, I kept going to work, but outside of that, I did nothing. I went home and I went to sleep, and it was really horrendous. But in last year, I started something called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and it's basically, a great way to define it is, some people call it chess for people, other people call it folding clothes with the person still inside of it. It's brilliant fun, and it's ridiculous, and you get to wear awesome clothing. But the reason that for me was really impactful is because it's not my daily job. It's something I do outside of security, and it was a great way to get active. And then when the drama llamas of the security industry came up and attacked me, I would just turn it off, go offline, and then go to the gym. It also let me meet my partner, which was quite lovely. So that also had a positive. Obviously, having a safe and welcoming home is massively beneficial, and is the reason I relocated to Ireland. Being able to admit when I need help was a really hard lesson for me, but I think it's also a really hard lesson for people of this industry, where typically if I say I don't know something, I get ridiculed. Whereas if in a developer conference, I say, XYZ about security, they'll come up to me and after and be like, oh, that's really interesting, I didn't know that. And they're happy to admit it. I mean, I don't work in the developer industry, but from the outside point of view looking in, I've noticed a difference in their kind of security or their conferences. It's almost safer to be like, I don't know that. Whereas in security, a lot of times it doesn't feel safe to admit that I don't know something. And I actually still get anxious about it. But I guess I'm really rambly, sorry. But basically,
you carry on.
Getting out of that drama-filled, toxic environment is actually stepping back and recognizing those people that are being so toxic. I pity them because they're really unhappy. Whereas I've got this brilliant community in the BJJ, gym community here in Ireland. I have a brilliant partner. I have ferrets that are absolutely ridiculous, and they literally, you can't be sad around them.
They are Instagram famous, that's for sure.
They are, and they've got a Twitter account. And the funniest part is when I go to conferences, they get more followers. Like, it's really weird. But they make me happy, and just having those outside points of view is really massively beneficial. Also, I mean, Ian's on here. I have other people in the security industry, but Ian being the one that I'm talking to, when I was feeling really, really bad, I'd message him and he would be like, don't be silly, Zoe, we kind of need you.
It was mutual. I had a rough year too, to be honest. And, this is the community that I think can be, under the right circumstances, incredibly supportive. And I actually wanted CyberSec Stu to jump in on this, because he's got a lot of experience, I think, in dealing with that toxic element. So Stu,
hashtag drama clock, right?
yeah. Stu, do you resonate? Do you commiserate with Zoe, or?
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting because you're absolutely right. I have to say I've done a lot of talk at developer conferences, and it's a completely different feel. It's just a much nicer, friendlier. Everyone's there to learn. Everyone's there to help each other, and I think that's probably because it's a lot more collaboration in developers. Whereas in InfoSec can be quite solitary in some cases, right? So I think that might be that kind of cultural thing, right, where they're used to working as a team to build something, and therefore, it's very much that kind of mentality of cross collaboration, open source development probably drives that mentality. Whereas InfoSec, you can be a very small team. Against the business, but in terms of toxicity in InfoSec, I think it's a very small group, but they get a very big voice,
Yeah, that's
and,
right.
and I think that detracts. So there's been lots of Twitter drama around very small things, of people being targeted at conferences for posting photos and things like this, and and then people then, as part of the crowd, will jump in on that because it's easier to join in than it is to challenge these things. And I'm always trying to challenge as much as I can, and I've had quite a lot of recent experience of people backlashing against that. When you call something out, I think you get as much attention as you do for targeting someone in the first place.
Yeah, it's also often I often find that it's on Twitter particularly, it's easier to pick a fight than it is to focus on why we're all doing all this stuff in the first place.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it is.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I often find, because I can be quite argumentative, I think it's fair to say.
No.
Yeah, and
I
people
would
say,
have never said so.
well,
Never.
you in particular, Sean, know well. You often tell me to mute and forget about it, but I'll not mute and forget about it. I'll actually go mental and
Yeah, but you're argumentative with us, let
Well, that's
alone the
true.
rest.
But it's challenge. The word is challenge that you're looking for there, Ian. But I don't find it easy to mute and move on. That's the point I'm making. I find it a lot easier, I think, to go back to the troll or the idiot that's out there on Twitter and try and take them down. I do have case history, so I'm just probably the opposite end of that scale. I don't find it very easy just to forget about it.
But you know what? One thing that really resonated with me, with my partner, is he would always say to me, that's a little problem. That's nothing. Your life itself and your happiness is so much more valuable than that person's negativity. So really, as much, and don't get me wrong, I still struggle with it as well. And I'm like, that person on the internet is wrong. I want to correct them. But it's almost like it's not worth it. Like, I like that analogy. I don't know who it was, but somebody shared that analogy of like the number of spoons you have in a day, and you only have a certain amount, and sometimes you have less, sometimes you have more, but you have to be very careful about not overusing it or running out before the end of the day. And that to me really made sense. Maybe not spoons, but maybe something else, but just the fact that actually, as much as I want to correct that person, as much as I want to say, no, you're wrong, you're a jerk, stop doing that. On the other hand, it's like, yeah, but why bother causing that grief in my chest, in my heart, and make myself suffer longer? Because I'm giving that person the power to make me unhappy. So in fact, actually, if I just ignore them, and I've been doing it, I am very liberal with my mute buttons now. I quite love that muting. And so I'll just mute the person and be like, you know what, that person doesn't matter to me anymore. I'm going to focus on the people that do matter, like talking to my friends, the community, and the people that I'm mentoring. Because if I'm going to mentor someone and advise them to do something, just like my clients, if I tell them to do X, Y, Z for their security, I bloody hell better do it myself, because if I don't, then I'm just being a hypocrite, and I'm being just as bad as the malicious actor, because I feel like I'm almost lying to these people and telling them to do something that I can't even do myself.
Yeah, I think I agree with. I completely agree with what you're saying. I think sometimes it's a case of it's a case by case basis. I mean, Ian will remember my exchange with Fallon, which happened earlier this year, and here we have an example of a right wing, clearly a racist, misogynistic bastard, right? And he needed taking down. He was destroying a lot of people's lives. And I just thought at the time, yeah, you can't ignore people like this, but they're just going to go away and ruin other people's lives. And so I went.
That's a fair point.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. But going back to that statement of only doing as much as you can. I mean, don't ruin your life to try and stop someone.
Agreed.
Get the support of your community, and take care of your health, because I would like to get to the point where I remember those years ago I was part of this community and I loved it, and then there's two people that decided they hated me and they kicked me out of my own community, and it really broke my heart, and I really felt awful about it for a long time. And maybe it's just I'm getting older, but then I started to realize that, well, if that community, some of the people still chat with me, but the ones that didn't and decided to listen to the person lying to me or lying about me, maybe they weren't as close of friends that I thought they were. So, you know, like kind of measuring what's the healthy amount of drama can I handle? How many drama llamas can I balance in my day?
Yeah.
So I do agree using my, you know, influencer or power, whatever I do have. It's not much, but sometimes I think my ferrets have more. But but using that for good, I think, is massively beneficial, but also not to the detriment to myself.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Okay, that's perfect. Okay, Zoe, time's up, I'm afraid.
Wait, I have one question for Zoe before she goes. Really quick one.
Go for it.
Since you're doing jiu-jitsu, does that make you a security ninja?
I feel like I'll say yes, not because I'm good at it, but because that sounds cool.
I think you deserve the title.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I would take it.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much indeed, Zoe, for your time. Really, really
Cheers,
fascinating
thanks for
stuff.
having me.